And so the first thing we said to ourselves is, aha, we got to solve the architecture problem. The other thing we said was, wait a second, there is this looming elephant in the room, the 800, maybe 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that's the emergence of quantum computing. Now,
quantum computing doesn't just change security, it breaks it. Let's talk about what comes next. Welcome to Impact Quantum.
Hello and welcome back to Impact Quantum, the podcast where we explore the emerging industry and field of quantum computing, where you don't need to have a PhD or study particle physics, you just need to be curious. And with me is the most quantum curious person I know, Candace Gillhoolley. How's it going, Candace?
It's great. Thank you so much, Frank. I'm really excited about today. We're going to be speaking with Adam Firestone, who is the CEO and co-founder of Sixera. He's also calls himself a quantum secure innovator. I have lots of questions. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm very interested. So welcome to the show, Adam. How's it going?
thanks. I am glad to be here. It's going great. I can't complain. I mean, I could complain, but nobody would listen. So
that is the true. That is a true statement of wisdom. It doesn't matter. No one would care. No one would listen. No one would care. So tell us about, and it's pronounced Sixera.
Sixera.
Okay.
Sixera.
I wasn't sure if you're going for like a Cicero type thing or.
It is really pronounced 6-character URL that was available without a surcharge.
I like it. Which people don't realize the struggle is very real. Right, Candace?
Absolutely. No, it's true. It's really true. So that's
we were going to
fantastic.
register a domain name, and it was available, but it was also, the surcharge was like, was it $2,000?
Yes, it was insane.
Right. So.
Well, that's cool. I'm guessing that the license plate's probably available too, but
probably. I haven't looked into that yet.
So I'm curious about this. What is this? How do you participate in like quantum security, or quantum safety? Like, what does that look like?
So maybe I'll take a step back and give a general the way we see the world. I think the best way to start is to say that, look, we solve a problem, and we're not, I like the word quantum is cool. It gets people's attention. We like that a lot. But at the end of the day, we are solving a business problem, and the business problem we solve is what we think the most fundamental business activity is. And that's the ability to move information from outside the organization into the organization, and from inside the organization, outside the organization. We have called this very creatively in to out, out to in. And what happens is this: unless you are the person who makes their living by making decorative wrought iron gates with a map torch in your backyard out of leaf springs you steal from wrecked trucks in the middle of the night, you get paid in cash, and you advertise by word of mouth, this applies to you, right? So everything in the world. What happens is somebody or something sends you something that is valuable to them. And they send it to you because you have some level of unique expertise. You take that expertise, you apply it to their problem, you create a value add product, and then you push it out. And in that set of transactions, we have 2 hops across organizational boundaries. And that's great, and that's fine. And those hops presuppose that you can move that information in a secure manner. In a secure manner, meaning that only the right people see it, that the information isn't changed by someone without authorization along the way, and that you can rely on it when you get it to work with it. And so, to give you an example, you have a great new idea, and you put it together in an invention disclosure statement, and you send this to your patent lawyer. And you send it to your patent lawyer somehow, so it leaves your domain, goes to your patent lawyer's domain. Your patent lawyer does magic to it and creates a patent out of it, and then pushes that out again to the Patent and Trademark Office and a copy back to you. So we're making hops all over the place through the wild, wild west of the open internet. And we have assumed to date that there are many ways we do that, right? We assume we can use MFT, Managed File Transfer. We assume we can use electronic file sync and share tools. We assume we can use shared portals or secure portals, like the kind you might use to send your stuff to your accountant for your taxes. and that all these magically will keep things secure, except we've got a whole lot of evidence over the last, I don't know, 40 years, to include some really high-profile cases recently, that none of this actually is secure, right? Things are constantly getting breached. Not only are things constantly getting breached, credentials are being stolen, right and left, in the millions. And part of that,
And that's just what we know about. I'm
target
sure the
ceasefire,
reality is
100%.
way worse.
Well, let's assume it's all happening by a factor of 10. The mechanics of the problem are still the same. And there's two sets of mechanics, so bear with me. I promise I'll get done with this soon.
No, this is fascinating. I'm with you along for the haul, man. I got my rucksack on too.
Excellent. So mechanics number one are maybe the architecture that we rely on for the internet, client server, is not securable. It's robust. It'll get the information there. It is ubiquitous. It is relatively inexpensive, but maybe it's not securable. And maybe it's not securable on a number of bases. Maybe it creates one big target, right? Whatever server that is. Maybe it relies on humans who can be suborned to administer it. And there's an entire class of attacks against the humans that have nothing to do with technology. Maybe it makes things so difficult when we try to secure the insecurable that the people who are charged with doing their jobs get so frustrated at 5 o'clock on Friday night when they have to get this, whatever this is, out the door to the right people on the other side, that they're using their personal Gmail accounts. Right? We could go on and on about the issues. And so the first thing we said to ourselves is, we got to solve the architecture problem. The other thing we said was, wait a second, there is this looming elephant in the room, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that's the emergence of quantum computing. Now, quantum computing has many, 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 many promises, right? I mean, we might have weather forecasts that are accurate. We might actually have the ability to do really neat things in healthcare, like customized medication schedules, early indications and treatments for cancer, all sorts of great things. Optimizing delivery schedules and resource usage, quantum computing can do a tremendous amount for us. And the reason it can do that is because quantum computing, more or less, to simplify it down and probably oversimplify it, so bear with me, it's incredibly massively parallel. It affects a massive parallelization of computing. And the way I describe it to folks is, do you remember doing mazes as a kid? You'd have a book of mazes and you'd run your pen down. You guys probably did it in pen. I was never that good. I did it in pencil. But you'd run your pencil down from the beginning, and if that didn't work, you'd start again, and you'd start again, and you did this serially. Imagine being able to do all of that at the same time. All possible solutions to find the right one. That's the promise of quantum computing. Unfortunately, that runs smack into the technology that underpins the internet today, and that technology is classical asymmetric cryptography. It's a lot of words, but or a lot of syllables anyway. So classical asymmetric crypto is things like RSA, it's things like elliptical curve. It is the thing that allows that lock icon on your browser to appear because there's a discussion back and forth between your browser and the server. It's the thing that allows your debit card and credit card to be secure to you. It's the thing that allows your keyless remote entry to your car to work. It is ubiquitous. It is everywhere. And everything we do in the connected world relies on it. Literally everything. This technology, in turn, relies on something called trapdoor functions. Trapdoor functions are a type of math where it's really easy to calculate the output, but really, really hard, think 10,000 to 100,000 years hard, to figure out what the original inputs were without knowing what they were to begin with. And those form our keys, and great, okay. Unfortunately, quantum computing solves those in an efficient manner. Now, efficient may be an hour, maybe a day, we don't know, but it certainly isn't 100,000 years or 10,000 years. And so the security and integrity of everything we expect and rely upon on the internet is at risk. And we said, aha, opportunity, great. And so we looked around, and one of the first things we noticed was that there are relatively new post-quantum algorithms that have been standardized, right? So NIST has standardized ML-Chem, which is FIPS 203. They've standardized ML-DSA, which is FIPS 204, and SLH-DSA, the latter two are digital signature algorithms, which is FIPS 205. And there's another one in the wings called HQC. HQC should be standardized sometime in 2017. ISO is working on a couple of algorithms in terms of standardization. One is classic MacAleese, one is Photocam. Okay, great. But then we started to look a little more deeply at this. And we realized that if you solve the algorithm problem and only the algorithm problem, you haven't solved the quantum problem. Why is that? So the reality is right now we're on 3 different computers. One of them may be a Mac, one of them may be a PC, one of them may be something else. And natively, those devices speak different languages. Fortunately for the internet and for all of us, we have universal translators that allow us to talk together. I'm kind of a sci-fi geek, so I apologize for the reference.
You're in good company.
Those universal translators are things called internet protocols.
Mhm.
And the reason why internet protocols are so powerful is because they're standardized and widely adopted. So for example, when you see the little lock icon in your browser doesn't know who it's talking to. Your browser doesn't know the server, but it knows how to speak TLS, and it knows how to negotiate a TLS session with the server. And because TLS is standardized, TLS 1.2 or TLS 1.3 is TLS is TLS is TLS, and we're good to go. That's great, except the post-quantum internet security protocols don't exist.
Right.
Not only do they not exist, standards time is kind of like somewhere between normal people time and geologic time, right? It took us 10 years to go from TLS 1.2 to 1.3, and that's when everyone was pulling in the same direction. We now have a situation where there is a looming threat, right? Quantum computers, our latest and greatest guess is 2028 to 2030. Sometime in there, they're going to cryptographically relevant quantum computers are going to appear. And we have a standards body, the IETF, who's doing this internally. And there are a number of things they are arguing internally about. People far smarter than me, like Dr. Daniel Bernstein, have written about this. What that does is it applies friction. Friction means we don't get standardization until a later date. If we don't get standardization until a later date, proliferation and broad adoption are also similarly delayed. So how the heck are we going to talk to each other in a secure way? And again, we looked at this and said, that's a problem, but the flip side of the problem is opportunity, right? So we built 2 things. Thing 1 is a platform that allows us to extend to a whole bunch of stuff. I can talk about that in a little bit if you're interested. The thing we built on top of the platform, the narrow end of the wedge as we enter the market, we're a startup, is something called Portal 6. And what Portal 6 does is it allows organizations to conquer and address that out to in to out problem by addressing not just the quantum problem in terms of algorithms, but the quantum problem in terms of algorithms and a mechanism that obviates the protocol problem, and also the architectural problem at the same time by adopting a decentralized approach to information movement and networking. And so that's who we are. It's what we do. We've been around about a year. Yeah, we're about to enter the market, hopefully with our first pilots sometime either later this month or next month.
Oh, interesting. Very fascinating stuff here. What would you say has been your biggest challenge in terms of conveying your message, right? I liked your whole spiel. I loved it. But it was that would have been one heck of an elevator ride.
It's really hard. Your point is really, really well taken. And so the answer is, here, read our white paper, but people don't want to read. So the elevator pitch is, look, you face 3 huge problems, actually 4 if we count credential leakage.
Right.
You face 4 huge problems. The world is telling you they've got one of them solved. All 4 are fatal. I'm glad we've solved one of them, but the other 3 are going to kill you. We can help. And then,
like
now
that.
you've
That's
got their
good.
attention, right?
Right.
Well, I use a first aid analogy. If you're familiar with the acronym MARCH in first aid,
No,
massive bleeding, airway, respiratory, circulatory, and hypothermia or head injuries, right?
Right.
Any of those can be fatal. That's just the order you check the list in. And so from our perspective, if you are not addressing all of it, right? Architecture, credential leakage, algorithms, and protocols, you're not addressing the problem. Your patient's still going to die. And we seem to be stuck in a do loop right now inside the community where we are focused on only the algorithms.
Right. And algorithms alone don't get you very far.
Algorithms have to be integrated, they have to be employed, and they have to be put into protocols. You know, for organizations that do their own bespoke software, all of that matters. For the majority of organizations in the world that use somebody else's software, think about your Microsoft 365 account, right? How many organizations just use that as the basis for their software and they're good to go? For organizations that do that, we are in this position of having to wait for vendors to fix all the problems.
Right.
And what we think we can do is provide a solution that will grow with you, that is available immediately, and it will grow with the organization, even as these other solutions roll out.
Interesting. Go ahead, Candace. She has something profound she's going to say.
Yeah, don't set me up like that. I'm just really kind of interested, everybody, everyone needs this kind of security in their system. So how do you determine, what sectors you're trying to go after in what, in what kind of priority order to
So
have as opposed to not,
yeah,
right.
that's
So
a great question. And it really is about a go-to-market analysis. So right now, we've got some really cool stuff. So I'm going to walk right out into a global 50 law firm, sit myself down in their IT department, and they're immediately going to fall over themselves trying to buy my stuff. Probably not, because that's not how that works, right? So you take a page out of Startup 101, and Startup 101 says, I'm going to get myself a set of pilot customers that prove out the point. I'm going to look at 2 or 3 or 4 sectors that really could use this. And if we think about professional services, for example, right? Lawyers, what do lawyers do? I give you what is the most important thing in the world to me so you can do something important for me with your expertise, that is create something and push it out. Well, if that sounds like out to in, into out, how about accountants? How about financial services? How about consultancies? We can go down the list. There are a whole lot of those organizations out there. And if we start with organizations that are small, let's say, and small is interesting because let me go into that for a second. Let's say 10 people, 100, maybe 100 people max. 1, we're getting legitimacy. 2, we are able to, in real time, to continually improve the product. And 3, there's a concept of internal and external seats in our product. So you have a law firm, 20 lawyers, right? So you got 20 seats, but each lawyer has 100 clients. So you need the ability to create these secure communications, secure information exchanges. We call them sixes, secure information exchanges. You need the ability to create sixes with at least some significant subset of that 20 times 100 of those 2,000 seats. And so by starting small, 1, we gain legitimacy, we gain the ability to come back to larger clients over time, and at the same time, we are exposed to many, many, many other people because the attorney or the accountant or the financial analyst or whoever is now working with some other group who sees the tool and says, "I would like some of that, please." And so it's a virtuous cycle that feeds back into itself and continuously allows us to go after bigger and bigger organizations.
Interesting.
This reminds me of the conversation we had yesterday, Frank, with the harvest now, decrypt later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a good thing. Like and then so folks, obviously I encourage listeners to go back and watch that, listen to that. But harvest now, decrypt later, kind of defined in a sentence is, I know that in a couple of years, I'm going to have, as a nation state, I'm going to have access to some of the tools that'll crack this existing encryption. I'm going to start hoarding data now because storage is cheap. And honestly, if I'm a state actor, money ain't, I will quote Jay-Z, bling, bling, money ain't a thing, right? So what's, Adam, does the fear of encrypt harvest now, decrypt later, like does that scare a lot of people as much as it should, or?
So not as much as it should, but certainly more than it did. When we started on this journey, we had to really explain quantum and the threats posed by the ongoing attack, right? The attack is
Right.
happening. This conversation is being recorded, and that's great. Maybe they'll hit the like button when they decrypt it and they read it. Um, but but now all of a sudden quantum is really starting to hit the news cycle, and we're
Mhm.
starting to get a whole lot of interest, and people are really starting to twig to it. It takes less and less effort to explain where we're coming from and why we're doing what we're doing as time goes by. And by the way, that's part of the whole the gestalt behind why we think, for example, we're a great investment. Because there will come a time, if you guys remember Y2K, I'm probably the only one old enough to do that. Don't argue with me.
No, I remember.
The and if you remember the craziness, you couldn't spend money fast enough in about
Yep.
1998, right?
Mhm.
In about 2027, we're going to be in a position 2027, 2028, where organizations will not be able to spend money fast enough to get anything called post-quantum. And so we like to think, really far out ahead of that wave.
Yeah, I can easily see that. Like, you're starting to see feature lists of, this is
Yep.
post quantum safe, or, my concern is, the unlimited funding led to excesses, which ultimately added fuel to the fire of the dot-com boom.
Yep.
And it's not hard to see the parallels of the AI boom. And that fear kind of doing that and kind of like the aftermath, like I don't know, like that's the kind of thing, that's the sort of thing that also kind of keeps me up at night, right?
Well, I like to think that we are serious about our technology. We're also serious about the value we provide. We're serious about our cryptography. I am, by training and avocation, a systems engineer, right? I build stuff. It's what I do. I figure out what the problems are, what the solutions are, and we deliver those solutions to people who need them. And we don't build fluff on top of that. We don't gold plate it. And we don't lie about what we're building. There are some serious concerns that the cryptographic community has about where we're going in terms of post-quantum capabilities, and those concerns are things we're aware of, and we build in, or we will be building in, mitigation mechanisms so that no matter where it goes, the products are able to flex and still support the user base.
That's a good way to put it. Like, and not saying like that you would take advantage of it, but like I just wonder, like, if we can't learn from history, as an industry.
Well, yeah,
right.
George Santayana, right? I mean, those who do not learn from history, doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are doomed to repeat it. It's rain is wet,
Sad but
snow
true.
is cold. Yeah.
Sad but true.
So when you're working with businesses who are now getting excited about quantum because they're hearing about it on the news and AI plus quantum, what is the biggest misconception that you come across that they have
I
about
think there's
what quantum can do?
There's a couple of places things intersect. So one of them is the idea that it's all solved because algorithms. Another is really, what does this mean to me? And the idea that anything you do, from your mobile device to your laptop to your desktop, talking internally to the server, talking to different parts of your organization that may be distributed, any and all of that is subject to harvest and therefore attack, is something people have a rough time wrapping their heads around. People have a rough time wrapping their heads around the concept of all data, right? I think, one of the things we have done historically in cybersecurity is we have categorized and classified data as to, this is really important, this is not so much important. The problem is, given the scale of data movement, it's really hard to separate that out. You have an employee who's ordering lunch on DoorDash. You have another employee who's moving some really sensitive stuff. It's coming over the same wires, the same pipe. How do I separate those out? Our philosophy is you shouldn't be. You should be applying cryptography in a blanket way to protect your information so that it doesn't matter what information it is, it's all protected. And that reduces a burden level on defenders, because you just assume everything is going to be protected over the course of its life cycle. So I think that's part of it. The other part of it is, what do I do? Right? People don't know where to start. And so
Right.
one of the design principles in our first product is it's going to be boring. It's going to look like stuff you've seen a million times that you intuitively know how to use, and all the special stuff is hidden. It's all under the hood. And as a result, we don't create a daunting factor for either employees or CIOs. You know, it's a web-based product for a reason initially, right? I don't want Frank, the CIO Frank, to come to me and say, "Wait, what? You want me to move all my data? I have to buy 3 more servers. I have to, install software on everyone's machine." Nah, they'd have to go to a browser, open a tab, and if you do that, all of a sudden you've made adoption really, really easy, relatively painless. And then when you want to move into future iterations that might be a little more invasive, you've established trust with people. You've established a track record, as opposed to coming in and demanding that the world change just to accommodate you. And I think that's not a winning strategy.
No, that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. It's funny though, you say, boring, right? Make it boring, right? Because that's true, right? Like, from the sales cycle point of view, right? Like you want to have the sizzle and the amazement and all that. But realistically, enterprise software at its best is boring.
Yeah.
Because they don't want drama. You don't want surprises.
Right. You don't want to have to train your employees. You don't want a barrier to entry. You want this to be, it's one of the things I say is, hey, that's a really nifty iPhone you have. That's a really nifty Android you have. How long was the user manual?
What user manual?
Exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the goal. That's what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to achieve a seamless and almost completely transparent adoption, and make it simple, painless, easy, and to have it continually grow, because that level of simple and easy makes it the gotta have application.
Right. That makes sense. What? Yeah, no, like I actually just got a Kindle, and this is the user manual for it. I just got a color Kindle, and this is the user manual.
Exactly.
Basically, all the stuff they couldn't get away with because it's all regulatory notices.
Right.
There is a manual apparently on the actual device, but no, that's true, right? Because that saves shipping costs. It saves a lot, right? Plus, the only thing worse than a manual, then no manual, is an inaccurate manual.
And the problem is nobody reads the manual, right?
Yeah, anyway,
I spent a bunch of time in the Army, right? And RTFM was a watchword, but the reality is nobody reads anymore. So you've got to create something that's intuitive and easy to adopt. So
right.
So let's go back, because now I'm all excited about what shaped you into where you are today. You're a 7-time patent owner. You've written. You actually told me in the green room that you've just released another book.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
On tech startup life and advice to give, which is incredibly exciting. So why don't you walk us back a little bit to you in university? What were you focusing on, and what kind of made your path go towards quantum?
Wow. I was born a long time ago at a very young age. No. So in university, I was an ROTC cadet. I was one of 3 ROTC cadets. And I graduated, and 6 days later I show up at Fort Knox to become an armor officer and do all sorts of stuff. And through that path, and after I got out of the regular Army, one of the things I constantly noted was we were training to fight in a way that would have been totally familiar to Patton's Third Armored at Bastogne, right, in World War II. And I was wondering why this was. And then I got out of the regular army, went to law school, and I practiced law for a while. And I kept wondering, why are we doing this stuff by hand? It wasn't a quantum yet, and so I got frustrated, right? I mean, getting frustrated as a lawyer is probably something common to many lawyers. And I stopped doing that after a while, and I moved down from New York to Northern Virginia. And one day I walked into a job fair, a big defense contractor, and it was mobbed. I mean, there's all sorts of people there, right? And there was one table that was not mobbed, and that one table was not mobbed because it didn't have a fancy display. It had a whiteboard with a bunch of acronyms on it. So I walked over because I figured they looked lonely, and I said, "Hey, my name's Adam Firestone. Here's my resume. As you can tell from there, I'm not qualified for anything you have on that board, but you want to hire me, and this is why." And they did. And so I spent almost 20 years at that company. The last thing I clawed my way up, and I taught myself and had the opportunity to take a lot of training, work with a lot of really smart people, and IR transformed into a systems engineer. I had the opportunity to work and take some classes at some really, really top-notch organizations. Wound up teaching systems engineering in the organization's in-house university before I left. And I guess the last thing I did was I pretty much single-handedly redesigned the mission planning and command and control systems for a small little system you might have heard of called Tomahawk. But I got the security bug when I was there, right? Because security was SEP, it was somebody else's problem. You built your stuffs, and then the information assurance people would poke at your stuff and then probably let it onto their network, and that was it. And that sort of seemed disconnected and disjointed to me. So I had the opportunity to go and do some interesting middleware work, open source and middleware, which is really cool, and do some really cool travel to South Asia, which was also really cool. And in the process of doing that, I really got a fantastic introduction to the idea of integrated security. The idea that we can build it in and build it right. In fact, I'm also the editor-in-chief of United States Cybersecurity Magazine, and my tagline is "Build It Right, America," because that's really where I got that bug. And I said, "Great, security's great. What's security? I know, threat intelligence." So I went into threat intelligence, which, by the way, spoiler alert, is neither. And I got disillusioned. And I said, maybe security is protecting the information with cryptography. I got my first patent when I was working in threat intelligence. That was in a multi-level security system. And then I moved into this pure play cryptography world, and second patent there, post-quantum symmetric cryptographic algorithm, which is kind of pointless because AES is good. But, it was another patent. And I learned a whole lot about it, but I really learned that you've got to put it together for people. You've got to hand them something they can use on day one, because at the end of the day, nobody cares about your cryptography. They just don't care about components. They care about the ability to do their jobs, which was the right answer.
They care when there's a leak or an issue.
Right. But day to day and convincing people to buy it. So then we go, and I said, what should I do next? And one of my co-founders, who is still one of my co-founders, sat down and we said, okay, the whole problem is, we talked about that architectural problem. We should do it this way. And we created a company and we started to do it this way. And we got acquired really early by a larger company, cloud company. And we built out a grand solution that solved everything. And that was the worst thing you could possibly do, because Frank, as you pointed out, it takes half an hour to explain a grand solution.
Right.
And you can't sell that. And then eventually there was this realization on everyone's part that our focus on decentralization was fundamentally at odds with a cloud organization's focus, right? I mean, it just doesn't work right. So we left, and we sat down and said, okay, so we learned a whole lot about what not to do. Let's do that the right way. And we were joined by a classmate of mine from university, became our third co-founder, and the rest is kind of history. And so we put together Sixera, and we have been fortunate to work with some really, really good people. It's a small team right now, and when we close this round, the team will grow, but not by a whole lot. Really focused on being efficient, being lean, and putting product out there as rapidly and efficiently as possible. So the quantum thing happened over time. Among other things that I have done or did do or am doing is I taught at a couple of universities. So I taught cryptography and systems engineering at Georgetown at the graduate level. I taught at the George Mason University Business School, and I taught undergraduate at George Mason cybersecurity engineering. For all of those areas, quantum was an issue, and it was a looming issue that became, more and more imminent. And that's when I really got familiar with the threat, and I really got familiar with what are the solutions. And I was part of the original, yay, we have algorithms. And then, you took a deeper dive into that, and you said, wait a second, I'm a systems engineer. What are my actual requirements? My actual requirements include the ability to converse, the ability to move information in real time. And holy smokes, this data in transit problem doesn't go away with just the algorithms. And so I'm interested in quantum computing. I write about it a lot in my Substack, but I'm really interested in the ability of the world to continue to be the world that we know after the advent of quantum computing. It's really about preserving our ability to innovate and work together and work collaboratively as an economy, as a country, as a global set of partners.
That's a good way to put it. I don't know if there's a YouTube channel called the Y Files, and he has one on post quantum, like the Q Day, I think is what it's called. And normally he covers like crazy conspiracy stuff. That's normally like kind of what he covers. But like, when he did the one on what a post quantum kind of world would look like, it was kind of like that was the one I'm like, yeah, I can't debunk anything in that, right? I mean, he did play up some things for, dramatic effect, but aside from that, I mean, everything else looked like it was pretty legit and pretty alarming, right? Like, so I highly recommend. We'll put a link in the show notes. It's a cool show anyway. There's like a talking goldfish, and it's funny.
It can be alarming.
Right.
It can be, and it's fascinating because there are so many people and so many players with so many agendas. I mean, there's like James Bondy spy stuff as well.
Right.
And there's suborning of or accusations of suborning of standards bodies, and why are we using this instead of that? And this seems to be,
Right.
somebody else's agenda. And, okay, those are real, right? Those are real concerns by really smart people. And
Right.
so you can do a number of things. You can throw up your hands and say, blah, or you can push the I believe button and just accept what someone says because they're saying it. Or you can take, I think, the route we took, which I like, well, I'm parochially interested in. And that was, we said, if this is true, what do we need to be able to do to mitigate that problem? There's a phrase that I absolutely despise, but has gained traction, that is important, and that phrase is crypto agility. And you may have heard that phrase. I get a stomach ache every time I hear it. I get a worse stomach ache every time I say it. Not because it isn't important, but because it sort of glosses over the fact that we should have been building our systems, all of them, in such a way that everything is modular, that everything is replaceable, that everything is maintainable. And the fact that we had to come up with this as an industry, we had to come up with this marketing phrase, crypto agility, which nobody knows what it means anyway, bugs me.
It's more popular cousin, which is also about as same on the cringe level, is digital transformation. See, yeah. There's a visceral reaction when you hear that. It's like, ugh. And every time I say it, I throw up in my mouth a little.
But the core of the discussion for us was when we build things in a very, very careful way. The system is extraordinarily carefully architected to allow us to swap things in and swap things out. We are not tied into any one technology, to any one way of doing things. We know what we want to accomplish, but the tools and the mechanisms we accomplish that with, we can change as we need to change. And so with respect to cryptography and all the spy stories and the clashing and the gnashing of teeth and all that. And I mean, do you remember the rock versus disco wars?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That was nothing compared to the hybrid versus PQC wars, right? That are going on right now. And so our response is we provide customers the ability to say, hey, this matters to me. I want this type of crypto or that type of crypto or this type of crypto. And so it becomes something that we can manage to give them the ability to manage for themselves because prescriptive never gets you very far because you're going to make someone unhappy at some point.
That's true.
It's fair. Quantum has a very long R&D runway generally. So how do you balance, your visionary ambition with practical near-term commercial value?
There are things people need to do, right? I need to be able to send Candace my magnum opus, right? So she can read Still Scrappy, which is the book that came out last week. And how do I do that? And I need to have a conversation with you. How do I do that? And I need to send you a text message or a chat. How do I do that? The set of things people need to do is finite. And if you think about the smartphone when it first came out, it didn't enable you to do anything different. It just let you do it in one place. Right? The things you needed to do, I need to take notes, I need to take pictures, I need to call my friend, I need to send text messages. All of that was just done in one convenient package. And so if we look at the world as a set of, I need to be able to dot, 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 how do I enable people to do all those things based on the set of constraints that emerging technology is placing on them? And so what you do is you start with, remember that narrow wedge I mentioned earlier, you start with a narrow wedge. I'm going to allow you to move files from point A to point B, period, full stop, right? It's just a data in transit solution. We're not a file system, so on and so forth. But maybe in the future, I'm going to add on voice, and maybe in the future, I'm going to add on video, and maybe in the future, I'm going to add on chat, and it's going to be all decentralized, and it's going to be a complete unified communications platform, and I build it out over time based on levels of staffing, levels of investment, levels of sales, and so on and so forth. But you have a roadmap and you adhere to that roadmap until the market slaps you in the face, at which point you say, okay, I get the picture, let me pivot. Companies that can understand where the market is today and what the pivot points are and the indicators of the pivot points are the companies that survive and thrive. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Way
That was
better than
brilliant.
in my imagination. Like really good job, by the way,
Thank you.
of answering said question.
So
Um,
what else can I
so
talk
tell
about?
me about this book. I think Still Scrappy, I think was in my Amazon recommendations feed. So
I should be so
good on
lucky.
you, man.
Um,
I
so
don't know. I remember seeing that title somewhere. So maybe it was from LinkedIn or whatever. I consume a lot of content, and at the upside is I appear really smart. The downside is I lose kind of like the origin of it. Like, so I'll be like, I remember hearing this somewhere. And like, I have a lot of those moments. And there's actually an SAT word. Maybe we should have that as a feature for season 4, Candace, the SAT word of the day.
I love
Um,
SAT words. I love SAT
um,
words.
Cryptonesia, which
Cryptonesia.
means you don't remember where you heard something or something like that. I think that's what it is. You remember something, but you don't remember where you learned it from.
Cryptonesia is when I try to forget about RC4. Anyway,
So
so
tell us about the book.
so there are two books actually. The origins are while I had been both involved in the previous company, and there were a bunch of things I saw that operationally that I didn't make sense to me. And then I was advising another company, and I liked those guys. Oh man, did I like? They were just good folks. But they approached everything as if it was de novo, as it was brand new, as if this had never happened before ever. And I, you do your advisor thing and you say, hey, maybe you could. Here's a way, and you get ignored because it's never happened before, and we have to figure this out from the beginning. And they kept inducing friction into their processes as a result of that. So I started to write a blog anonymously, and the blog was just my way of it was cathartic. I was getting it all out of my system. And at some point I looked back and I said, holy smokes, I got a whole bunch of stuff here. And this stuff is actually pretty good. And I put together a book called Scrappy But Hapless. And I like Scrappy But Hapless. Really, I think it's a really good book. It's not as disciplined as I would have liked it to be because it evolved from a series of blog posts, right? And the blog posts eventually matured to the point where each post grew longer, right? I went from basically 1,100 words or so per post to 3 to 5,000 words a post. And of course, nobody's going to read that, right? I was posting for me. It was anonymous. I had violated every rule of that Medium has about how you get readership, and what I had realized was the evolution kind of happened on its own. There are three parts to the posts I'm most happy with in that book, and part one is a historical story. It could be anything from the history of East Germany or something in East Germany or something that happened in the ancient world. And then there's a thread that connects it to modern tech companies and how companies navigated the same sort of problem, because the problems don't change. Who's navigating them changes. And then the third part was a fictional vignette about a mythical startup called Scrappy But Hapless, or SBH. And there's a cast of characters. There's Mallory, the CEO, Carlos, one of the lead engineers, Alex, another lead engineer, Teresa, the chief commercial officer, Renee, the CTO. And what that has done is it's two things. One, it's the dessert, right? It's the reward for getting through the rest of the chapter. But two, it really puts it in context for people living in a startup universe, about each specific problem. And so the first book is good. It is not necessarily important to read it in any particular order because all the chapters stand alone. But I learned a lot. And by the time I'd figured it out and published the first book, I had about half the material for the second book already written. And so the second book really refined that. And so still Scrappy, the subtitle is How the Threads of History Inform and Influence Tech Startup Leadership. And it does the same thing. And it really is a manual for doers. It's a you're not alone. You haven't done this, has been done many, many times. Learn from history, learn from the ability of other people to solve the problem, then pick that up and run with it. And of course, then there's the Scrappy But Hapless stories, and they're fun and they're endearing, and you get to like and really identify with the characters. And I think on my radar at some point is a Scrappy But Hapless novel about a tech startup using those characters. So they're both on Amazon, and hardcover, softcover, ebook, whatever. And yeah, so and it also, there's a day-to-day involved with being a CEO of a tech company, right? And so that day-to-day in many cases wound up in the books in one way or another.
Okay. That's fantastic.
Cool. It seems like there's a lot of good information to glean from that book. I'm definitely gonna pick up a copy. Cool.
That's fantastic. So you've got to think that being an author and completing it, which is one of the, I work for a tech book publisher for years, and I've been in publishing for years, and the hardest thing in the world is to actually finish a book.
I will tell you, Candace, oh my gosh, one of the things I realized through the whole journey was how incredibly awesome publishing has become. So publishing used to be the world of gatekeepers, right? It was, there might be 1 million people writing things and maybe 50 of them get a book out, right? And when you get a book out, one, they change it so it's not you writing the book anymore, it's some editor or group of editors writing the book. And then it's on some schedule where you've had great grandkids by the time the book comes out. What Amazon has done with Kindle Direct Publishing is level the playing field. And it used to be that it all looked like Samizdat stuff way back when that was just yuck, right? The quality was meh. Not anymore. I mean, oh my goodness. The ability to communicate, the ability for everybody to get their message out there has never been more available. And I think it's fantastic. I think the ability of everyone to say, this is my world, let me describe it for you. Not everyone's going to sit down and write a book, but you can. And you can then publish it, and it's virtually free.
Yeah, No, and I'm a big fan. Candace, how many books did we put together? This year we did 2. Last year we did 1 or 2
Yes, we did
on
one last
Kindle.
year. Right. Exactly. And it's true. You have this information and you're compelled to get it out there and to talk about it. It's very exciting that it's true. We ourselves have used the Amazon direct to Kindle publishing.
But you're
Uh,
right. I mean, I'm sorry, Candace, cut you off.
no, go ahead.
Too many Monster Energy drinks today. Um, the um, the gatekeepers, right? Like, and I know Candace worked for a big publishing, and if you're really curious, you can look her up on LinkedIn and see who it was. But um, those books, I've written one book for a big, not that company that Candace worked for, but a different one. And I mean, it was a 13-month cycle, and that was fast, right?
Mhm.
And if you look at, like, writing a book about an AI topic or a security topic, I mean, 13 months is an eternity, right? 13 months ago, from the AI space, DeepSeek wasn't a thing, right? 13
Right.
months ago, Willow was just about to be announced, right? Like, I don't know how the publishing industry, at least traditional publishing industry, is gonna keep up. But Kindle Direct, man, I mean, it's just, if you want to get now, you do have to do some sifting, because you're right, like the quality is way better today than it used to be.
Yep.
But you do have to do some sifting. But I tell you, man, some of the best, smartest people I know have books out there because they're free from publisher input, which isn't always positive, and they're the time to production is just phenomenal, right?
You can finish a book on Tuesday and it can be published by Friday.
Yes.
I mean, it's or Thursday. I mean, it's wild.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they
it's
always
true.
tell you, like, it could take 5 days, but they always
Yes.
trick you, and like they do it in 48 hours. Yeah.
I wrote one of the chapters, I think it's in Still Scrappy, is really about it's about the importance of a personal platform for founders of a startup.
Right.
And so book publishing is one of them, but platforms like Substack, oh my goodness. Learning how to use LinkedIn, absolutely critical.
Right.
I write on a tech topic usually about 1,000 words a day, and I publish it. It published it every morning at 6 a.m. on both LinkedIn and Substack. And that has been really, really important and effective about creating recognition and creating a voice and trust within an overall community. And again, we have never the ability to move information so that it creates a personal platform that is influential and effective for a business has never been better than it is today. And I can't emphasize, and podcasts like this, right? I can't emphasize how important it is for founders to take advantage of those things.
Yeah.
Well, we love hearing that.
Oh, no,
But
you
it's
guys are
true.
doing a tremendous service, right? For both a founder like me and potential buyers and potential. I mean, what it really does is it helps get the word out, and it helps unify the community in a way that you could not do 10 years ago.
No, it's true. Like, I mean, and you look at like what podcasting has done,
Mhm.
like just in general, right? Like, you're right. Like, if I wanted a radio show, right? Like, there were a lot of gatekeepers, right? And you would have to be beholden to sponsors, right? Like, we love sponsors. We are actively seeking sponsors as we record this, just putting it out there. But like, our production costs are so low. Like, season 3 was not sponsored by anyone, right? I think up through like season 8 of Data Driven, it also, well, okay, we had one sponsor, but like, I mean, it was largely the production costs are so low. And I think you're right. If anyone, it's really it's not so much the cost, right? Because realistically, anyone who's a professional, an IT professional, is going to have a laptop. They're going to have,
Mhm.
post-pandemic, they're going to have a camera and a microphone that's good enough, right? It's really just time is really the only production cost. Candace and I have this discussion all the time. Like, let's do this. And we try to figure out the most time efficient way, right? Because to do something.
And the democratization of information that things like that enable is so valuable. I mean, I know that there's a lot of brouhaha about who says what when on what social media platform, but at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer in the idea that in the marketplace of ideas, the best ideas will win out, and the ability to contribute to that marketplace is not only valuable again for founders and for purchasers and for people in the community, but I think it's valuable to the nation as a whole.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Agreed. Agreed. So where can everybody find out more about you and what you're doing?
So there's the Sixera website, and that's www.six3ro.com. There is LinkedIn, so feel free to look me up. First name, last name, Adam Firestone, pretty easy to find. And I think with those two entry points, we can take you just about anywhere. If you join and you follow me on LinkedIn, or you connect with me on LinkedIn, the daily tech stuff that I publish will come straight to your inbox or straight to your feed. So
cool, awesome,
excellent.
And with that, we'll play the outro music.
Excellent.
Candace and Frank blowing my mind at last. Quantum podcast, they're breaking the mold. Science and Ska beats, it's bold and it's gold. The multiverse is skanking in time. Black holes are wailing in a horn line so fine. From Planck scales to planets, they're connecting the dots. Candace and Frank, they're the cosmic hot shot. Quantum podcast, turn it up fast. Candace and Frank blowing my mind at last. Quantum podcast, they're breaking the mold. Science and Ska beats, it's bold and it's gold.